For centuries, we have studied ancient ruins in silence, measuring stones, cataloging carvings, photographing shadows. But what if we have been missing half the story? What if the ancients built not just for the eye, but for the ear? Ancient monuments were never silent. They hummed, resonated, and echoed with frequencies that altered the minds of those who gathered within them. This is archaeoacoustics, the science of listening to the past. The field emerged in the 1980s, shattering the assumption that archaeology was purely a visual discipline. Its pioneers discovered that ancient builders were not just architects of stone, they were architects of sound. In 1983, mathematician and classical singer Iégor Reznikoff descended into the Paleolithic caves of southern France. Le Portel, Niaus, carrying no instruments beyond his own trained voice. Reznikoff hummed and sang through the darkness, listening as the cave walls answered back. In certain chambers, the echo was overwhelming, a living, resonant roar that seemed to breathe with the rock itself. When Reznikoff mapped his findings, the result was extraordinary. An 80 to 90% correlation between the densest clusters of prehistoric cave art and the points of highest acoustic resonance in the caves. The theory was startling. Early humans used humming as a form of echolocation, navigating pitch-black cave networks by listening for resonance, then painting in the places that sounded most alive. Acoustician Stephen Waller, who researched over 100 rock art sites globally, proposed something even more profound, that ancient peoples didn't just notice echoes, they believed they were the voices of spirits. As musician David Byrne wrote in 2012, sound was the driver for nominating a sacred space. In places where percussive echoes can sound like hoof beats, we find petroglyphs of horses. Sound shaped belief itself. In June 2003, at Cambridge University's MacDonald Institute, the discipline received its official name. Archaeoacoustics entered the academic lexicon, and the study of ancient sound became a science. In 1994, a team from Princeton's Engineering Anomalies Research Group turned their instruments toward the great megalithic chambers of Ireland and Britain and found something no one expected. Dr. Robert John, Paul Devereux, and Aaron Watson measured the acoustic properties of Neolithic stone chambers across Britain and Ireland. Every site they tested resonated at the same frequency, 110 Hz. 110 Hz. Not random, not accidental. The same resonant frequency, engineered into stone by Neolithic builders who lived thousands of years apart. The question was, why? In 2008, a UCLA EEG study led by Dr. Ian Cook provided the answer. Exposure to 110 Hz tones physically alters human brain activity, deactivating language centers in the prefrontal cortex. The language centers go quiet. Rational thought dims. Emotional and mood processing areas surge with activity. The result, a trance-like state, precisely the mental condition sought in sacred ritual. Malta's Halsaflini hypogeum, carved from limestone 5,000 years ago, took this further still. Its oracle room resonates not at one frequency, but two, a powerful double resonance at 70 and 114 Hz. A priest speaking into the oracle niche would have his voice transformed, amplified, deepened, made inhuman by the resonating stone. To those gathered below, it would have sounded like the voice of a god. No ancient monument is more iconic than Stonehenge. For centuries, scholars debated its purpose. Calendar, cemetery, temple. In 1999, Aaron Watson and David Keating offered a new answer, a concert hall. Watson and Keating's acoustic surveys revealed that Stonehenge's concentric rings of stone effectively contained and amplified specific sound frequencies, generating powerful standing waves within the circle's interior. In 2011, Stephen Waller proposed something bolder. that Stonehenge's entire layout was designed to mimic an acoustic interference pattern, the invisible geometry created when two sound sources interact. Waller tested his theory with bagpipers and blindfolded volunteers. Walking through Stonehenge, subjects heard sound mysteriously vanish in certain spots, eerie acoustic dead zones that appeared and disappeared like magic. To ancient minds, sound that vanished and reappeared without cause would have been supernatural. The stones didn't just frame the sky, they conjured acoustic phantoms, invisible presences moving through the sacred circle. Across the Atlantic, the ancient Maya were engineering their own acoustic wonders. In October 1998, acoustical consultant David Lubman presented a revolutionary analysis of a pyramid that millions had walked past without truly hearing. Lubman demonstrated that El Castillo's limestone staircases act as a precise acoustic diffraction grating. A single hand clap at the pyramid's base produces a chirped echo, not random noise, but a specific sound. That chirped echo perfectly mimics the call of the resplendent quetzal, the iridescent bird considered most sacred to the Maya. The pyramid didn't just honor the quetzal. It could sing like one. Lubman also documented the Great Ball Court at Chichen Itza, a massive open-air arena where whispers at one end could be heard clearly at the other, 150 meters away, through an extraordinary whispering gallery effect. The Maya were not alone. Across the continent, in the high Andes of Peru, a 3,000-year-old ceremonial center called Chavín de Huántar concealed one of the most sophisticated acoustic systems ever engineered. Beginning in 2007, Stanford researchers Miriam Kohler, John Rick, and John Chowning launched a massive acoustic investigation at Chavín de Huántar. Their focus: 20 ancient conch shell trumpets called pututas, excavated from the site. Chavín de Huántar was built as a labyrinth, a maze of narrow stone galleries that wind underground through the temple complex. Kohler's team discovered these galleries were not random. They were an acoustic instrument. The stone galleries were engineered to transmit the deep, low-frequency blasts of the pututas, while simultaneously filtering out the higher frequencies of human speech. Voice was silenced. The horn god was amplified. For ritual participants moving through the dark galleries, human voices would vanish, swallowed by the stone, while the supernatural drone of the pututas penetrated every wall. The architecture erased humanity and amplified the divine. Miriam Kohler described the visceral experience of performing inside Chavín's galleries. I can feel through my body the resonances between instrument and architecture, a physically and emotionally transformative experience. The ancient architects of Chavín had solved a problem that modern acoustic engineers still marvel at: how to use stone, space, and geometry to transform a musical instrument into a living, breathing oracle. As journalist Kate Douglas asked, "How do you listen to the past?" Obviously, there are no recordings from ancient times, so you need to think laterally. By the 2010s, Archaeoacoustics had a powerful new answer. In February 2014, the OTS Foundation hosted the first international conference dedicated entirely to archaeoacoustics in Bolzan, Malta, bringing together archaeologists, acousticians, and neuroscientists under one roof for the first time. Modern archaeoacoustics relies on impulse response testing, firing a starter pistol or balloon burst inside ancient spaces, then capturing the precise acoustic signature of every surface, every stone, every curve of the architecture. Those impulse responses feed into wave-based acoustic simulations, digital models that reconstruct exactly how sound would have behaved inside a space, even a space that no longer exists in its original form. The most dramatic application of this technology came after April 2019, when fire consumed the roof and spire of Notre Dame Cathedral in Paris, One of the greatest acoustic spaces in human history, suddenly silenced. From 2020 to 2025, the A&R Fen project, The Past Has Ears at Notre Dame, used advanced 3D laser scanning and wave-based acoustic simulations to digitally reconstruct the cathedral's historical acoustics. The result: historians and musicians can now hear exactly how Notre Dame sounded in the 13th century, before centuries of renovation altered its acoustic character. A cathedral destroyed can still be heard. This technology is now being applied globally to Greek amphitheaters, Roman bathhouses, Egyptian temples, Native American kivas. Every ancient space that was once alive with sound can potentially be heard again. Archaeoacoustics has revealed a truth hiding in plain sight. The ancients were not primitive. They understood the physics of sound well enough to engineer it into their most sacred spaces without a single equation. From Paleolithic caves where shamans painted in the most resonant chambers, to Neolithic tombs tuned to frequencies that dissolved rational thought, ancient builders shaped sound as deliberately as they shaped stone. The Quetzal's cry echoed from a pyramid. A god's voice boomed from a carved stone niche. Spirits whispered from cave walls. These were not superstitions. They were engineering, disguised as the sacred. And now, with digital tools that would have seemed equally magical to those ancient builders, we are learning to hear what they heard, to step inside the sonic worlds they constructed with nothing but stone and knowledge. Archaeoacoustics is still young. New sites are surveyed every year. New correlations between art and acoustics are discovered. New frequencies are measured in chambers that have been silent for millennia. The field is accelerating. Every ruin we once walked through in silence now asks a different question. Not just, what did they build? But what did they hear? What did the sound of this place do to the human minds that gathered here? The stones are not silent. They never were. They hum with the memory of every voice that ever resonated within them. Every chant, every horn blast, every whisper offered to a god who answered in echo. To truly understand our ancestors, to know what they believed, what they feared, what moved them to build monuments that have outlasted every civilization, we must do more than look at what they built. We must listen. The past was never silent. It was singing. And for the first time in human history, we are finally learning how to hear it.